Mary Sues. We know them, we hate them, but what if I told you that today we have a Naruto-themed Mary Sue who could not rest until she smuggled her 16-year-old anime girl into the game? It's weird, it's cringy, it's definitely creepy towards minors, but before we dive deeper, put your claws together for today's sponsor, FABLES. FABLES is a subscription-based service for D&D 5th edition that will give members access to one episodic adventure per month. These tales are divided into 6 episodes and take place in the Astoyan Empire, a realm where the sun has vanished from the sky and vampires rule the realm. The party tumbles into this adventure because their souls possess sparks of sunlight, mysterious fragments of divine power desired by a power-hungry lich. Members of Fables will have access to a monthly PDF, tokens, and maps. Each fable will be made up of 6 episodes, each a new story in the adventure belonging to that fable. Now, cultured listeners will recognize the words Astoyan Empire. Fables is made by Ghostfire, the same amazing team behind Grim Hollow. If an adventure in the world of Grim Hollow sounds right for you, check out the link in the description, you will not regret it. That said, roll post. I'm a beginner DM, so I don't have very many books or anything that helps me out with this, so I have an experienced DM friend who helps me out. I'm a pretty simple dude who loves when his players get creative. It really makes me happy when they ask for homebrew and whatnot, so long as I approve and I think it fits in my own homebrew world. I have a full party of a human fighter, a merman cleric, a half-elf sorcerer, a centaur barbarian, and a merman rogue in the party. I'll explain a little bit about the asterisks at the end of the post. At any rate, a former coworker of mine loves hearing about my tales as a beginner DM and my homebrew campaign called Kingdoms of Ibon. The setting is a sort of dark fantasy world centered around the mid to late 1400s where magic is absolutely vital to the world. The main goal of the story is for the champions, aka the players, to band together and stop the big bad evil guy, the slumbering king and his decay magic from destroying everything. To make matters stranger, a former coworker, who I will call by their character name Delilah, messaged me the other day and asked if they could join the game. I told them that the party was already full and we couldn't have any more people join in, so she proposed that she could at least have me let her character run as an NPC instead. I told her, yeah, sure, let me see the sheet, send me the backstory, and I'll see if I can't run them for you as a special NPC. I sent her a document with important bullet notes about Ibon and the world and legends and whatever else she needed so she could integrate this character in properly. I should have said no. I really should have said no, but I'm, as my players put it, kind of a pushover. 4 days later, she sends me a sheet and her character's backstory, which is only 1 page long. I think to myself, yeah, okay, I can work with this. But then, I open the documents. I see a wall of text on the backstory, all in 10-point monotype cursovia to look fancy, and bright neon pink highlight over all of the text which just hurt my eyes. I had to copy and paste it into a different document just to fix where I could see it properly. That was red flag number 1. Red flag number 2 was when I opened her character sheet. It was a level 20 character with stats way over 20, and it was, needless to say, a complete and utter mess. I tried to make sense of it all. I really did. I'm just gonna pull out all of the main info I got from reading the backstory and tell you what was wrong as I go. 1. Her character, Delilah, was the daughter of the big bad evil guy. Hey, Delilah? Yeah? My big bad evil guy doesn't have kids. He does now, it totally fits for her story. No, it doesn't. Did you read my lore, the document I sent you? I did. She did not. At this, I must say that my big bad evil guy is more inclined to straight up kill you without so much as batting an eye than to sleep with some random woman. He would much rather watch the person decay in front of him with a slight smirk on his face as it grows full of joy to watch someone die, than to have a family. When I explained this to her, she stated, well, he must have gotten drunk and had fun, lol. I did not find this funny as it disregarded what I told her. 2. She was completely overpowered and had the typical description of the edgy Uchiha OC. Black hair with red streaks, striking eyes, and eternally 16. I asked her why eternally 16, and she said that my game needed cute magical girls. My game has magical men, women, children, and everything in between, so why magical girls? I will never know. I still feel like an ass for feeling so cringed out with this NPC concept she wanted me to use. 3. Her character was betrothed to my biggest NPC, the High King of Ibon. The High King is 23, and the youngest High King in the history of my world. He is also the strongest sorcerer on record, unless something changes, because most sorcerers have to use 2 arms for their glyphs to make the magic work. He only has his right arm via a backstory element. He's also what one might say demisexual, meaning he'd rather get to know someone before falling in love. She straight up said, "He loves Delilah and he wants her to bear all of his children." The character of the High King, in my head, would have ran and jumped into his royal bunker with a spell at the ready to catapult her from the premises. 4. She wanted to be the semi-final boss of the game. "If you cannot defeat me, how can you expect to defeat my father?" Dramatic music plays in the background as the party is on their knees and exhausted with near-death wound scenario. Self-explanatory. But the final part, the final red flag, she wanted to have full-on graphic scenes described in detail of her character's chess physics, seduction, and more. This made me extremely uncomfortable as the character is under 18. But as she puts it, "She's technically over 5,000 years old because you told me the big bad evil guy was sealed away 5,000 years ago." To that argument, I still put my foot down. I told her, "Delilah, I can't use this character as an NPC unless I completely rewrite her and fix her stats. I'm sorry." Delilah lost her mind. "Excuse me! This is the best NPC! She totally makes sense in your world! Why won't you use her? If I can't play, you should at least control my character for me!" I can't. She's too OP and her backstory does not fit my world or the setting. You didn't read anything, and if anything, most of my players would be uncomfortable to hear a technically underage character having graphic descriptions and details being thrown out in their faces when they specifically requested in my game to have fade to black scenes unless in private chat. This next part of her meltdown slayed me. "Typical fucking millennial, always in your damn safe spaces and not wanting to get out of your box. You're such a fucking hypocrite, I can't believe you." This mini rant of hers was in a voice message and went on for 3 minutes, stating that I was a bigot and so on. All I did was tell her, "No, I'm sorry," and she flipped her lid. I ended up having to block her. My anxiety couldn't take the mean comments, and such as I'm a sensitive person. My priority is the safety and mental and physical health of my players. If I'm not comfortable with something, or they aren't comfortable with something, then it's a done deal. We talk about it, we get it cleared up, or out of the way. But Delilah didn't even take any constructive criticism I gave her. Either way, I can't help but feel if this is an Am I the Asshole post, half of me knows, hey, everybody starts somewhere with their characters, right? But the other half says, oh my god, no, please just burn it with fire, you know? With the mini nightmare over, I hope that my players can enjoy Ibon as much as I do. As a new DM, I still have a lot to learn, and I'm happy that people are helping me where I need it. TLDR, former coworker creates typical immortal Naruto OC to be the semi-final boss and love interest to be major NPC's future wife. Rages when she gets told no thank you for putting her character in the game as a major NPC. Ouch, the cringe is real. Trying to shoehorn a frisky teenage girl into a D&D game is as cringy as it is genuinely concerning. Props to the DM for nipping it at the bud. OP called themselves a bit of a pushover, but I think that they overall behaved reasonably for a fresh GM. That said, the video continues. This one about a nerd that gets confronted and booed by the entire party for trying way too hard to be the main character. Roll post. So I made a campaign for my friends, and I spent a lot of time thinking about all of these places and scenarios to run them through. I was excited and happy to start, but on day one I was already seeing some issues. This was everyone's first time playing D&D, including myself, and so I didn't really know how much of the stuff worked. I only did simple things like, oh, Rogue stole some loose change, here's 50 XP. Yeah, I was really dumb about it, but the issues started with Bard. Anytime I had the party fight an enemy, he always said, I put him to sleep. And I'm not exaggerating either. Every stupid monster was being put to sleep. Even if it didn't work, he would try again, wasting his spell slots. To me, it was annoying because I wanted him to branch out or try something else, but it didn't work. And also ended up making him useless for a turn. However, what really annoyed me was when he constantly said, if my charisma stat was higher, I would have succeeded. This was his argument every time. Even when I say he wasn't going to make it on a 10, he would say it. Bard didn't understand that it's not automatic, but even if I explained it, he wouldn't cling to the information. Eventually, we all just stopped playing because we hardly got together, and me and Bard would constantly argue about his stats. Every time he would ask me to change it to an 18, even though his stats on everything else were decent, and his charisma was already 15. Yes, a classic case of the player is always right. The DM is not meant to run a game, of course. They're meant to be the vehicle through which the players get to run their power fantasy. That's just the rule. I kid, but people like this are immune to logic or reason. They've already decided exactly what they want and cannot be convinced otherwise, no matter the evidence. The wheel is turning, but the hamster is dead. Roll post. After a while, I came up with my own little campaign where Monk, Rogue, and Bard can all play as 40k Space Marines. I didn't invite Rogue, however, until after this whole dispute. Now, since I'm still new at D&D and DMing, I asked them to pick something simple, something that would not require anything extra or be too extreme. Monk happily chose a Sister of Battle, pretty simple with only a bolter and a chainsword and a self-heal factor. I was a captain with a Stormbolter and a Power Sword, but whenever Bard picked a class, Librarian! I was immediately fuming. I directly asked him to pick something simple with a gun and a melee weapon. He chose to be a Psyker. Monk told me to simply just say no, to put my foot down and stop him, so I did. You can't be a librarian, it's too much for me to handle with the psychic pool and abilities that I would have to keep track of. He replies, but Monk has a self-healing ability, how come I can't be psychic? To which I reply, because she spent background points to upgrade her faith in the Emperor, which is literally how they heal in the lore. I may have messed this part up. My dad tells me a lot about the sisters, but I never fully understood them. Well, that's unfair. I tell him straight up, dude, just pick something else that's not psychic. He finally stands down and decides. I want to be a chaplain. I kid you not, this guy was wanting to spend background points to be a chaplain, which I don't even know how they work. I tell him, dude, just pick something else please, you don't have to be super special. He gets mad and points the finger at Monk, saying, she's special, she's a Sister of Battle, and I can't even be a chaplain? At this point, Monk steps in for me and calms him down, explaining that the only reason she's a Sister of Battle is because she's a girl and she's either going to be a Sister of Battle or a Sister of Silence, which the Sisters of Silence are stronger than Sisters of Battle. He says, fine, I won't be a chaplain. What are those guys with the jump packs? Inceptors. He wanted to be an Inceptor. At this point, I hang up the call. I just gave up trying to have a regular campaign with him. Of course, this tale isn't over. As the blow-up draws closer, what I wanted to say is that new DMs have a ton on their plate and very little experience. I know it can suck not getting to play your super epic unique build, but when I ran my first campaign, I asked for the party to pick simpler classes too. It's not a weird request at all. I can't tell if that guy's doing this on purpose out of spite or if they genuinely didn't know that they were being difficult, but in either case the party explosion is right around the corner, so roll post. After that, I asked Rogue to join and he chose to be a lieutenant with a bolter and a power sword. That game only lasted one session and it was fun. At this point Monk and I relay what's happened with Bard to Rogue and he talks to Bard by himself. This debate goes on for months between us and Bard. We start literally talking about how it's narcissistic and unfair to the rest of the party, but Bard never got a hold of it. He always said he understood, but then would do the same thing. Monk did her very best to talk to him rationally, literally muting me in call so I didn't speak out, but eventually he broke her. She literally went to bed crying that night because she just wanted us to get along and for him to understand, but he never did. This is when I finally had enough. We organized a group call where we all confronted Bard on his antics and how much he's hurt the group. Rogue said this to Bard and it really stood out to me. Look man, you're one of my best friends, but you can't seem to understand that you're hurting everyone's feelings. Even when you say you do, you end up forgetting and you do it again and again. The rest of us agreed, and we told him outright that A, he needs to grow up and start listening. B, he needs to stop turning the blame on others and take responsibility. And C, he needs to understand he can't be the very best. Monk told us that me and Bard need to apologize and make up. I genuinely did apologize because I miss my friend and I hate this fighting. Okay, Crab Gang, time for my favorite game on the channel, What Happens Next? So, when confronted by everybody intervention style, with the OP even trying to be the bigger dude and apologizing, what does that guy do next? A, accept the apology and maybe even apologize themselves, or B, learn literally nothing and immediately start acting up. Only one way to find out, roll post. After receiving our apology, that guy says, "I'll only apologize for all my mistakes if you make my character's charisma an 18. I know this may sound like I'm making this up, but I'm not. He literally ignored everything and pulled this third grader's apology right out of his rear. This guy is 17 at the time and pulls this on us. I just gave up and left. We all did, and we never brought it up again. I left that whole campaign alone and never want to go back to it. TLDR, player is not happy with stats in one game, tries to be overpowered in another game and still fails, then finally gets called out for his behavior and doesn't learn a thing. This is a sad but classic example of somebody who has absolutely zero self-awareness. It sucks that the friend group has been seriously damaged over this, but with somebody like the Bard in the game, this was bound to happen in-game or out. Just remember, like I said earlier, if you keep trying to explain something to someone, but for whatever reason they will not or cannot understand, they weren't listening to you to begin with. The wheel is turning, but the hamster is dead. Best just to cut your losses and leave well enough alone. If you enjoyed or hated this video, check out some other clawsome crustacean tales in these funny boxes. Till next time.